again, every body is different. Every case is different. There may be something you went through personally where you were like, okay, for this amount of time, or this is what needed to happen, or whatever. Fine. But if you're making the choice to use that, or just like think about, okay, my body's not functioning well. What do I want to do? Do I want to bring in something else and mute my body's natural response? And then what happens? Like, where's the end point to that, right? Where's the end point? Is there an end game here in terms of like, oh, I'm going to take birth control for what? For forever? Right? Versus there's something off with my hormones. I'm going to dive into what's going on with my hormones, look at the metabolites, look at a urine test, and then figure it out from there. Hey there, welcome to the Female Health Solution podcast, where we discuss women's health, hormones, and everything else in between. Join me as we dive into the tools that you need to live your healthiest life. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the Female Health Solution podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Beth Westy. Today, we're going to talk about birth control pills. Yeah, we're specifically the pill, because that's a question I've gotten a lot recently. Just some info to keep it, in the back of your head when you were talking about birth control pills. I'm going to come from a personal standpoint on this. In this conversation, that's what the goal of this is to have a conversation on it. Because as someone who has learned more about what birth control does to my body, and then the amount of time I was on it when I was younger, if I knew then what I know now, I would have made drastically different decisions for my health. Drastically. I was an athlete, right? In high school, three sport. I'm holding up two fingers. Oh my God. 3-sport athlete in high school. I got a scholarship to play volleyball in college. And then went to grad school after that. I was on birth control for about 10 years of my life, during the time that I was at my peak performance. Now, I'm going to give you some references. I'm going to give you resources, and mention other books and things like that, and just resources for you to look up, so that the stuff that's coming out of my mouth, if you're like, I don't agree with this, or I think something different, that's great. I'm going to tell you where the information comes from that helps me formulate my ideas and why I think the way that I do. And just some of the things that I make, for choices for my daughters. My daughters are the age that I started birth control. I would never have them go on birth control. Yeah. I didn't know. I didn't know all the negative impacts. And especially for that time in my life, one of the biggest and most important things in my life was athletics, sport. Being an athlete, that was it for me. And there was a time in my life I was looking at playing professional volleyball. I got recruited to different teams. Now, from a knee injury and other things like that, I decided that that wasn't going to be the life that I wanted to live, that I wanted to go to grad school, and be a doctor and all that stuff. But there was, that was something that I really debated for a good chunk of time in college. And when I look at this, and think about these things, again, I was on birth control, and just knowing that being on birth control decreases your athletic performance by 11%, about 11%. 11%. I could have been that much faster, jump higher, right? Be quicker, have quicker hands, all this stuff. I would have done it in a heartbeat. Are you kidding? To get that much more of an advantage over my competition? Oh, Dr. Stacy Sims talks about this in her book, Roar, ROAR. You can, resource right there. And it's in, on social media. I have lists of resources and books that you can, look into. So she's listed there. I love a lot of the information that she puts out. And it's really important to keep that in mind when you're making this decision, right? When you're making a decision, again, the same decision is not right for everybody. I'm going to tell you things that I wish I would have done it differently because of how important sports were to me. And it could have changed the trajectory of my life, honestly. Um, yeah. But, okay, it is what it is. We all end up where we are for a reason. But I really wish I would have made different choices because of the impact that birth control can have on the body and how long I was on it without taking a break, without letting my body regulate on its own, without giving my ovaries a chance. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of research, here and there and everywhere where this is better for you to not have your ovaries be active. And women who've had children, so they're not ovulating as much, they have a lower chance of this or that. And the word cancer gets thrown around and a lot of this stuff too. And I just want to say, I am a firm believer in if you really work on your overall health, that's your best chance, right? Genetics can play a role. A lot of other things can play a role. It's really hard to point the finger at one thing. So that's all I want to say about it. It's really hard to point the finger at one thing or another thing. But when you are taking something that's major, and again, I took it for about a decade with no breaks. That's what I would have changed for myself, especially at that time frame. And then afterwards, after I had kids, there's certain types of birth control that I'm not a candidate for. I TMI for people who don't want to know, but I have an oddly shaped uterus. I'm not a candidate for an IUD, so I can't have a copper IUD or non-hormonal form of birth control. I can't have one. They won't. I can't have one. That no one will. No one will give me one. Can't put it in myself. I mean, I guess I've never tried. This is taking a weird turn for a podcast. Um, but there's, right? But I looked at some of these different options when me and my husband when we had 1, 2 children and we weren't sure if we were done with our family yet, right? Like we were young. I had all my kids before I turned 30 and we were just at a point where we're like, maybe we want more. We don't really know. I'm not really sure. Da, 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 da. Right? Everybody goes through this point, where you're like, okay, we have some children. I'm not sure if I'm done. And you're looking for a stopgap. You're looking for, okay, I've got a newborn and a 2-year-old. I don't know that I'm ready for another one right now. Right? I've been there, man. I've been there. Um, hmm. So you look at all your different options. And I looked at a lot of different options for myself then. And I made choices. One of the things that I read also, another resource for you, anytime you're looking at something like this, is looking at the insert of whatever it is you're planning on taking. And there's actually an account, a social media account called Just the Inserts. I don't know this gal personally, and this is not a plug or anything like that. It's like the information that is provided that the account provides. It's all from .gov websites, and it's all like I think it's a she. I think it's a she. I think she lets you know, like, hey, when you're looking at taking something, get your information right from the source, from the insert. Don't look at the advertisement. Don't look at the marketing of it. The insert, because that gives you both sides of the coin, both sides of the story of what you're taking. Then you can make the best decision for you moving forward. There's that. Dr. Jolene Brighton has a great book called Beyond the Pill. That's a wonderful book. And then there's a movie that you can actually watch, and it's called The Business of Birth Control. So these are all resources for you guys to look at. Things that I'll just mention again, the book Roar, where Dr. Stacy Sims talks about it briefly in that. The account, Just the Inserts. And again, anytime you're taking something, I recommend you can Google it. They make it public information. It is just a lot to have to go through and sift through and everything else. But if you're going to do the work of trying to make the best decision, make the time. It makes a difference. Beyond the Pill, Dr. Jolene Brighton, and then the book or the movie. Sorry, the Business of Birth Control. Yes. Um, so those are all things to consider. Now, again, in talking about birth control pills specifically, the mechanism of action for the body typically is to prevent ovulation from happening. So if you're not ovulating, right, or it prevents implantation, then that can't occur. There's another book I'm going to mention that I read recently, which it's a little different, but it also helps to change the perspective on even you as a female. If you're like, okay, because people will use birth control for either like actually birth control, like I don't want to get pregnant now and I want to be able to control when, where, and all that stuff that happens. That's one thing. Oh, my hormones are a mess. And so I think I should take birth control pills for that hormone regulation. So we'll talk about that one, the second one, in just a minute. But in terms of the actual like using birth control for birth control, right? There's a lot of different ways to manage that. And there's a great book called Ejaculate Responsibly. And one of the phrases from that book that really, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is totally a thing. They focus so much on the female body for birth control, for right. And I understand, right, that having access to birth control and things like that gives us the option. We as women, the option of when and all these other things of having children. Of course, it's not always 100%, right? Exhibit A is my oldest. um, but you at least have some more control of some of these things, right? Yes, I understand that. This is not a political or philosophical discussion in any of those factors. That's not the realm that I want to get into. This is just, talking about the mechanism of action for preventing birth control. And the focus for a lot of that is on the female body, whereas ovulation is involuntary. It can be irregular and it is 100% involuntary. You cannot force make whatever your ovulation to happen. It is involuntary, 100% involuntary. It's like your heartbeat, involuntary. You can't just sit here and tell your heart to stop beating. Involuntary. Ejaculation is 100% voluntary. That's one of the phrases from the book. Ejaculate responsibly. Again, just some different things to look at. But again, this is not meant to be like, this is okay. Yep. Let's just look at that in and of itself. There's a lot of ways to do that. What I want to spend more time on though, is talking about the number of women that get recommended birth control to balance their hormones, quote unquote, balance hormones, but it doesn't balance them. It prevents your body from doing the natural hormonal regulation that it would do. If it's stopping you from ovulating naturally, and the only way you can produce progesterone naturally is to ovulate, then you're not balancing them. You're muting it, right? I like to think of it like if you're taking a birth control pill, you're putting your ovaries into hibernation and you're relying on something else, an exogenous source for that input. And you're not actually having progesterone then. And then when you even think about, oh, well, when I stop the pill for a week, then I have a period. It's not a period. It's a breakthrough bleed because it's a withdrawal bleed. Because you don't have that constant influx of hormone every day. So then your cycle, then you have a bleed period, but it's not an actual period. There's a lot of other things that go along with, taking a birth control pill. There's a lot of side effects, things like that. I'm going to read off some of them, right? Besides spotting or the breakthrough bleeds, right? Because it's not a real period. You could have breast tenderness, a lot of aches, pains, inflammation meaning swelling, weight gain, weight loss resistance, headaches, anxiety, depression, right? Bloating, gut disruption, lots of things. Lots and lots and lots of things. So it's a really hard discussion to have overall. And in a general sense, I want to say, to talk about birth control pills, I want to just provide you with some other information, some other resources and things like that to think about. Ultimately, a woman's choice to use something like that, again, thinking about it in terms of the two camps of what are you looking at using it for? Oh, I want to actually not have children and I need an option for that, right? And this is my option, right? Okay, are there other options that would be better for you hormonally? Are you worried about any of the other things, right? The number of women that I know that they start dating someone, so they go on a birth control and they feel like crap, right? They feel like crap. They get headaches, they have weight gain, they all these things. They don't feel like themselves, mood swings, right? It also can change, the hormonal production within yourself, so then that can change the partner that you're attracted to and all these other things, right? There's a ton of information out there like this. So I just want to present like there's other options and really like making the right decision for you. It's not always an easy decision though. But then if you're looking at hormonal regulation, this is why I love using Dutch test. Because especially for gals that are in perimenopause or going into menopause, I talk to women that are in their 50s, mid 50s, and they've been on birth control for 15 years straight. And I'm like, well, what's the end game here? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you've been on this for so long. Well, when I come off of it, I don't want to get pregnant. I'm like, you are 54 years old and you haven't been ovulating for the last 15 years. I doubt your body knows how to do it anymore. It's not like, what? Right? Again, every body is different. Every case is different. There may be something you went through personally where you were like, okay, for this amount of time, or this is what needed to happen, or whatever. Fine. But if you're making the choice to use that, or just like think about, okay, my body's not functioning well. What do I want to do? Do I want to bring in something else and mute my body's natural response? And then what happens? Like, where's the end point to that? Right? Where's the end point? Is there an end game here in terms of like, oh, I'm going to take birth control for what? For forever? Right? Versus there's something off with my hormones. I'm going to dive into what's going on with my hormones, look at the metabolites, look at a urine test, and then figure it out from there. I've had women that I'm thinking of a case right now. This gal, she was in her late 40s, thought that she was in menopause, had had irregular cycles. She'd been on the pill for like 7 years straight, came off of it, had very irregular cycles. And she's like, I think I'm in menopause. I haven't had a period in like 10 months. Da, 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 da. We did a Dutch test, worked on her hormones. She started having regular periods. She was not excited at first, but I was like, listen, this is what your body's meant to do. And this influx of hormone, I am just a firm believer of, listen, if your body's meant to do it, we want to encourage that natural function to happen. And to understand that your body's going to go through these different phases of your life, that you're not meant to have this influx of hormone forever. You will go through menopause. You will have lower amounts of hormone, and that is normal. We want to support the system through every phase of life. How do we know how to do that? Dutch test. So you can go in the links, look at more information, look at getting a Dutch test. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. But again, a lot of this conversation, and I say conversation, like in no way am I telling someone what to do. And in no way do I want you to feel like what you've done for your life is right or wrong or anything. I'm sharing like my own history of being on birth control for 10 years. Because at the time in my life, I wish I would have known what I know now. I would have made different decisions because of what was so important to me. And my girls right now, there's no way I would put that stuff in their bodies. Right? Whew, no. But you make the decision for you. You are in charge of you and your life. And my goal with having this conversation opens up the conversation for you to have with more people, with other people, looking into different resources. And then if you are needing help or guidance, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you and talk about some of that. And again, I work, if you're wondering like, oh, do you not work with women who are on birth control? No, I absolutely do. Absolutely. Right? I have and I always will, right? Because it's your choice. I'm never here to tell you what to do. Just to help you like narrow down, okay, this is my focus. These are my goals. Help me get there. That's what I'm here for. So hopefully that kind of answers questions there, clears things up. But of course, if you need anything else, let me know. If you're looking for a Dutch test, there's the link. Let me know if you have any other feedback. I'm always welcome to it. It is the internet. I have heard it all for feedback. But thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. And I will see you guys later. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. If you would like more information, just head on over to drbethwesty.com for all the show notes and information from today's episode. And if you're looking for more community, more support, you can find and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and I would love to see you there.